All right. Good morning, everyone. We will now call this Tuesday, October 17th, 2023's Housing, Urban Development, and Zoning Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderwoman Sanye, Alderman Browning, Chair Clark Hubbard,
Here.
Alderman Cone, Alderwoman Sanye. You have 3 present. We have a quorum.
All right. Moving right along, we'll go to the approval of the minutes from Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023. Accept the motion. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can we please call the roll?
Alderman Cone, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderwoman Sanye, Alderman Browning, Chair Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Cone, Alderwoman Sanye. We have 3 aye votes.
All right. Our next agenda item is to hear item number 1, to hear some board bills. We are waiting and want to hold respectfully for the sponsor. So what we'll do is go into a recess until she arrives, and then we'll come back on. All right, thank you. We're back, and we are recognizing Alderwoman Cara Spencer on board bill number 133.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for your patience here as we are kind of getting used to the in-person versus Zoom meetings here this morning. Board Bill 133 is an ordinance that was presented to me by the Port Authority. It is the sale of a small sliver of land to American River Transport Company. It's a really, which is also known as ARTCO. It's a really unusual set of circumstances. So, because there was a swap a long time ago, there's already a building on it. So I think the best thing to really do would have James, Port Authority, kind of come up and explain the specifics. We've got a map for you to kind of explain what's going on here. So with that, if you don't mind what we do, I believe we have to swear you in. Just state your name for the committee. I'm not used to these microphones either.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is James Morrow with the City Council's office, and I provide legal support to the Port Authority.
Mr. Morrow, do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. And I do have a demonstrative that might be helpful to add some, help add some context for what we're talking about here. Here, I'll just keep. So there are 2 board bills up before the committee today. With the committee's permission, I might kind of cross-reference them. They both relate to the same warehouse. So at issue here is a warehouse and the underlying real property. It's along the South River front. The city leases out this warehouse as an intermodal distribution center. The current tenant is a company called Watco Transloading, L.L.C. They assumed the warehouse lease in the mid-2010s. The original lessee was a company called Gasconade Enterprises. So in the late 1990s, this property was vacant. In about 1999, Gasconade Enterprises built the warehouse that's there now. And they entered into a lease agreement with the city at a reduced rent. This was to help offset construction costs.
Can you repeat on my kind of where this is?
Oh yeah, so it's along the South River front. It's in the Marine Villa neighborhood. For those of you that are familiar with I-55, this is at the Gasconade entrance, just a little bit south of Gasconade. It's at 4300 South First Street, kind of bound between the river, and there's a Union Pacific line, which you'll see in the demonstrative that runs along the east side of the warehouse.
And also very close to our refuse
Correct.
service. So the city's refuse service is right there as well. You kind of go to drop off big bulk stuff there.
Yes, yes. It's it's on the parcel immediately south of the South Refuse Plant. So the current lease that Watco has assumed expires in December 29 of this year. It was a 25-year lease going from 1998 to 2023 as the maximum allowed under the charter. But in the early 2000s, Gasconade Enterprises decided they wanted to expand the warehouse. If you see in the demonstrative there, the building with the white roof where it says original warehouse, that reflects the dimensions of the warehouse as it was constructed in the late 1990s. You can see this line here, the former Wyandotte, that dashed line. That is the boundary line between the city parcel to the north and the ARTCO parcel immediately to the south. So in the early aughts, Gasconade wanted to expand the warehouse. They wanted to expand it past the city parcel line. So they entered into an arrangement with ARTCO under which ARTCO could operate a portion of city property as a parking lot. That's the little triangle that you see to the east there. And the Gasconade Enterprises was able to construct an annex, as identified on the demonstrative there, over onto ARTCO property. So all of these arrangements, the lease agreement between the city and Gasconade, the arrangements between Gasconade and ARTCO, all expire at the end of this year. So that's going to leave us with an unfortunate situation where we have a city warehouse that extends over onto ARTCO property. So we don't want that. We're hoping that we can resolve the matter before the lease expires. And the simplest way to do it is to facilitate a property swap, whereby the city and ARTCO exchange ownership of the two triangular slivers that you see in the demonstrative. So this board bill authorizes the execution and acceptance of a sales contract and deeds, exchanging deeds with ARTCO to formalize the property swap. There is no financial involvement here. No one is there. There's no payment or receipt of money. It is simply a property for property swap, and that will allow the city to lease the entirety of the warehouse back to Watco Transloading starting on December 30 of this year. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
And Madam Chair, I'll just clarify too. So Board Bill 134 is that lease. We can talk about, there's an increase in the costs. So that's why James was pointing out they're interrelated. So Board Bill 134 is the lease of that property. And as you can see just quickly on the agenda here, the 240,000 figure is like 3 times higher than the current lease. So there's a significant increase there. So our city councilor's office, James, and colleagues there have done a good job to negotiate it as far as I can tell.
Did you want to have anything else before we ask for questions?
Just for full disclosure, this is my neighborhood. I live in Marine. This is right down the street from me. Just wanted to make mention of that since Marine Villa doesn't get a lot of publicity.
Absolutely. All right, we'll go down the committee with questions. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate the explanation, and I understand the property swap sounds complicated, but also simple. I've never thought about just swapping property with anyone and going from there. But was there any reason why the city couldn't have just sold it to them, the part that the city will be maintaining? What would you think that would be?
You mean the portion of the city property that is currently a parking lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll just quickly say, so it is confusing. The city owns that parking lot, so we could have just given it to them. But they needed that. The city needed that, so we built, or we allowed our lessee Watco to build on private property. We didn't. I mean, Watco got into an agreement with the to build on this other property. So, I mean, we really need to rectify that because the building is located on someone else's property.
Okay.
Swapping just kind of realigns that line from being at a serious diagonal to alongside of the building. rectifies it.
Thank you so much. That is, it's a very interesting thing, and I'm glad I didn't have to do the legal work. So thank you so much for your time and answering my questions.
All right, Alderman Browning.
Thank you. Appreciate your presentation. I don't.
All right, I don't have any questions either. So with that, I'll accept a motion for Board Bill number 133.
I move to pass Board Bill 133 out of committee with a do pass recommendation.
Second.
Previous rule.
Seeing no objections, congratulations, you passed Board Bill 133. And now we'll move on to Board Bill 134.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I mentioned briefly, Board Bill 134 is the lease of that property. And as I described, so we're looking at $240,000 a year for the first year. It's a 10-year lease, increasing by 3%. And mentioned earlier, it's a significant increase. I think the current lease is 85 or 82,000. So we're seeing a pretty nice increase there in our leasing funds for the Port Authority.
Absolutely. All right.
Anything else to add on that? Please feel free.
I think that does I think represent the most significant change between the current lease and the new lease is the increase in rents. The use of the property will remain the same. It'll continue to be operated as an intermodal distribution. So commodities come in, they're stored in the warehouse, they're shipped back out either by truck or by rail. The lease is for 10 years. There is three options for 5-year mutual extensions. So once we hit the 10-year point, then 15 and 20, and so on, we'll have an opportunity to adjust the rent based upon market conditions. But otherwise, the lease that you see before you is a good reflection of how the property is going to be used.
That's great. I echo my colleagues' sentiments about the great negotiating that you all did for this lease as well. So, Alderwoman Swicer.
Thank you for getting such a better deal for this. I really appreciate your time. It's a lot of, I'm sure, a ton of work. How long have you been working?
Credit actually goes to Port Authority staff. I was here to review the legals and make sure everything is in alignment, but they were the ones that did all the heavy lifting. This is a deal that has been in the works for about 2 years.
Wow.
At this point.
Yeah, sometimes it's really interesting to think about when something gets to us and all the work that's gone into it. So please pass along my thanks, and thank you for the sponsor for bringing it forward. I'm excited to get it so close to the finish line. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Alderman Browning.
No questions. I share my colleague's sentiment. Thank you.
Really quickly, James, can you talk about, I think we briefly talked about how many jobs are there?
Yeah, I do wish Susan were here for that. She has those numbers more so than I do. The port director, unfortunately, had a pre-existing family matter and couldn't be here. I'm kind of pinch hitting for her. But there are a substantial number of jobs at the distribution center. With this lease agreement in hand, they are going to feel more secured making additional capital improvements, which will involve additional expansion work and more jobs down on the South River front.
Great, that's always a bonus. Maybe we can have that information, or if it doesn't go on consent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can get that.
and we can share it with our other colleagues. So with that, I'll accept a motion for Board Bill 134.
I move that we pass Board Bill 134 out of committee with a do pass recommendation.
Second, previous rule.
All right, seeing no objection to previous roll, congratulations on passing Board Bill 134 with a do pass recommendation. Thank you so much for your service. So glad you brought that up, Alderwoman Swicer, because I mentioned that, if you remember when we had our first meeting, about all the work that goes into these pieces of legislation before they get to us. So I'm glad you referenced that again so people can know, because that's very important. Okay, so any resolutions for review?
We have none.
Anyone have anything for committee discussion? Any written testimony?
We have none.
Announcements? Anybody have any announcements? Okay. With that, I will move that we excuse Alderman Shane Cone and Vice Chair Alicia Sanye for necessary absence. Yes, sir. Objection, all right, and I will accept the motion for adjournment. Previous roll. Everybody have a blessed day.